in the community. And so this woman, I would have never gave her 80.
Okay.
But she was like, I want to date. I want companionship at 80. My mouth almost dropped open. I was like, first of all, you 80. But then secondly, to think about that.
Wow.
To think about, here's an 80-year-old that still wants to date and still wants companionship. But I told her, I said, I would bet that the people you meet are younger than you.
They gotta be.
And she said, you're right, they are. And then she shared with me she had a 50-year-old. I was like, whoa.
Oh, whoa. Now she got her hands full right there.
Right. But when you look at her, you would never guess that she was 80. Not at all.
80-year-old. So you stop at 70.
Yeah.
And you should do something for us as 80.
Yeah, because what I always do, so based on my book that we've talked about before, my I'm Single, So What book, one of the stories that I tell in there is of a 70-year-old. And so that's like the oldest that I've really had in workshops and conversations is at 70 range. So this is the first time that I've ever had anyone, admittedly, let me say that, admittedly that shared that they were 80 and still looking for companionship.
That's wild. I mean, you got to bring some kind of baggage to the table at 80, don't you?
Well, I would assume, but maybe it's healthy baggage because maybe you sat in it for so many years that you've worked through the issues that you've had.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, she might have been widowed. I can't remember why she was single, but
well, she said she got a 50-year-old now, right?
Yeah, she's met a 50-year-old, but I don't think that's going because her family ain't too happy with the 50-year-old.
I can imagine.
Her family ain't feeling the 50-year-old.
So everybody, if you would like to be part of our conversation, you can go ahead and tune in and go and leave a comment on our social media. If you're following us on social media, check us out there. You can leave a comment. Dr. Burton is here. She is all things. She knows everything.
I don't know.
She knows everything. She's all thing, everything. Academic. We could talk a little bit about that. We could talk about DEI. We're going to talk about women's issue and men's issue because us brothers. Was any men in that? Oh, this was all for women?
No. So it was all for women, but purposefully.
Okay.
So when I had the initial meeting with Pastor Coleman, one of the things that he wanted was combine the men and the women. But in doing these type of workshops, for some reason, when men and women get in the room together, they shut down.
Both sides?
Both sides. And specifically, I noticed with women, how women will not talk. They won't be transparent. And so I told them if we wanted us to have real conversation, then you want to separate and have the women and then the men.
You should do like one of those red balloon pop things, you know, where they come in and get the 80-year-olds, everybody like 70 and older.
Right. Pop the balloon.
Pop the balloon. Tell them cut out. Yeah, everybody got to be like 75, 80.
But that might be interesting
to
do a what is it, non-traditional, I'm not going to call it a geriatric dating because that's just me, but an older... the older dating scene, because I didn't realize how many old people are interested in it. But here's the other thing, and I don't know what the stat is now, but at one point, I don't know if you remember this, statistically, within nursing homes and the older populations, they had one of the highest numbers of STDs.
Oh, no, I know that for a fact. Now, you know what? That is really crazy you say that because I worked in Glenville. I was working for a councilwoman when she was Sabre was a councilwoman. And we used to go to like the senior high-rise buildings, you know, Morning Star, Abyssinia Towers, all of those places there. The biggest problem they were having in those buildings were, one, it was a lot of people who was not seniors who was in there. But to your point, the STDs and all the stuff that was going on around there, it was like them seniors wasn't keeping themselves clean. I mean, I don't get, they were doing it, but Jesus Christ, they was just letting it go.
Well, think about it, though. Think about generationally. And I don't know, is it that they didn't just know to use condoms because they wasn't in the educational class when you talk about 80-year-olds?
No, they just thinking I don't need one. The
problem was we're going to keep it real. The problem was they was hoeing. It was too much going on.
Yeah, it was too much going on. That too. It was happening. That's what I'm telling you. Yeah. They were busy in those high rises. Them seniors was getting it in. So to that point, they do be doing what they do. And that is out there. So I would imagine that senior dating thing is a big thing. and people are hell, I guess, man, they got all kinds of pills and everything you could take these days. So I imagine at this point that if you want to enjoy life, you better do it.
Enjoy it to the fullest until you go to the grave.
All the way. Cradle to the grave. You better enjoy it. We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, I believe we have a guest who's going to come on the show, and we're going to talk a little bit about her program. We have a young lady by the name of Francisca Jones, we're going to talk. She's coming on the podcast, and she's going to give us a little preview of what we're going to talk about on the podcast, and we'll do that when we get right back.
Get ready, Cleveland. It's your turn to speak up. Call in and tell us what's on your mind. Join the Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell radio show on 95.9 FM WOVU or stream live at WOVU.org. Let's make your voice count. Let's go.
We got some big news, Cleveland. Your favorite community radio station, WOVU 95.9 FM, is now on iHeartRadio. That's right. No matter where you are, you can stream the voice of the village anytime, anywhere. Get all your favorite shows, the hottest community conversations, and the music that moves the culture. Now just a tap away on iHeartRadio app. So whether you're at home, at work, or on the go, take WOVU with you. Search WOVU 95.9 FM on your iHeartRadio app because our voices matter 24/7. And so does the mission. WOVU 95.9 FM. Our voices united, mission driven 24/7. The voice of the community, a Burton Belcar community radio station. Support for WOVU comes from East End Neighborhood House, serving Cleveland families for over a century. This summer, East End is expanding with a new child care location in East Cleveland, providing a safe, nurturing space for kids. The senior department is open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday with activities like bingo, exercise classes, and a food pantry day. Seniors can also join the foster grandparent program to mentor and tutor children. Visit EENH.org.
Support comes from CMSD.
To be focused on academics to me, it means preserving myself, applying myself, and holding myself accountable for my goals.
4.06 for GPA.
Being focused on academics really means self-discipline to me. CMSD offered me just about everything. I think that's what makes a good scholar, is being exposed to a bunch of different environments.
This is much of a celebration for each of you.
Seeing an end goal can make you be proud of yourself and your achievements that you've overcome.
What's up, Cleveland? It's time to turn up the conversation. Tune in to the Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell radio for What's on Your Mind Tuesdays. Call in, comment, and connect on 95.9 FM WOVU, WOVU.org, and hit us up on social media. Let's go.
All right. We're back, and welcome back. If you're just tuning in, you're tuning in to Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell and Dr. Heather E. Burton. We're here today to talk a little bit about art, culture, politics, and business all around the city of Cleveland and abroad. If we can, we even go overseas if somebody calls us. We're nationwide. You can tune in and catch us on WOVU.org, where you can tune in and listen to us live. Or if you're listening to us on our social media link, please leave a comment. We'll get your comment up. And if you got any question, leave it there, and we'll try to get you on the air as quickly as possible. But what we're going to do right now is I got a young woman who's coming on our program right now to just give us an update about some of the things that she's been doing. She's going to be our next guest on our podcast. Her name is Miss Francisca Jones, and she's the owner of Jones Consulting. She's a powerhouse consultant, a philanthropist, and a visionary leader who has raised millions of dollars to underserved communities while mentoring hundreds of student athletes and inspiring change makers. A proud daughter of Cleveland, she is now building her brand and building an institute. And we're going to do an episode with her. We're going to call it Built from the Mud, How Francisca Jones Rewrite the Rules of Power, Purpose, and Philanthropy. So I want to welcome everybody to the program. Let's give a warm welcome to Miss Jones. Miss Jones, how are you doing today?
I'm
Doing well. Thank you all for having me. Thank you to the WOVU team for inviting me on. Super excited about the conversation.
All right, not a problem. We'll just ask you a few questions to get everybody tuned in, because you're going to be in actually our studio, I believe, tomorrow to actually film your episode. We always bring people on because we want to talk a little bit about what's on, and we want the radio listeners to know who you are a little bit about this before you come on the show. So give us, growing up in Cleveland, what did it teach you, the ambitions that it taught you to get into the type of stuff you did? What was your whole driving force behind wanting to really get into philanthropy?
Most def. So I was a recipient of benevolence. I was a recipient of the work being done by community organizations and people who just care about other people. So I got interested in why don't those organizations maybe exist anymore from when I was a kid, or where do those people go? And so I got interested in nonprofit administration. So when I came back home from Ohio State, I went to John Carroll and got my master's in nonprofit so that I can learn how to lead, grow, and sustain these types of organizations. So that really kind of sparked me, right? Because I wouldn't be where I was if it wasn't for those organizations and people.
So you are the owner of Jones Consulting. How long have you been doing your consulting business?
So I am headed into year 5 of my consulting business, but I've been doing and kind of talking and being a money lady and a strategic moves lady for a little while now. So I formalized that in 2020. So going into year 5.
So tell us what Jones Consulting really does. Tell us what your specialty is over there.
Most definitely. So really what I do is I'm a philanthropic consultant. I've kind of found my niche, and that's within the sports industry. So working with athletes and also working with entertainers and organizations alike, helping them find sustainability, figuring out what their passion is and how they want to impact, but not just like having one-off events or having a golf outing or something like that, but really trying to figure out how to have a sustainable long-term impact in the communities that they're in.
Okay. And any athletes you work with here in Cleveland, or these are athletes all over the place?
They're all over the place. One in particular that has just really done some really great work. He's a former Browns player, TJ Carey. I think he's been in the studio a few times, but he's done really great work. And I do a lot of different work with, NFL, NBA. I'm trying to work on MLB, but they just have a lot of games. So we got to figure something out with them. But all over. But anytime I can have some business here in my hometown, I'm super excited to do it.
How about the women's sports aspect of things? Are you making headway into women's basketball and women's sports outside of basketball?
Most def. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the hopefully the Cleveland Rockers coming back to the city of Cleveland and really expanding my network. There's some really great organizations like WISE and Black Sports Professionals, where we are trying to build our powerhouse women professionals within the sports industry, so that we can build a heavy presence here in the city of Cleveland.
Okay, I got a couple of more questions for you. What's the number one mistake nonprofits make when trying to get funded, and how do you fix it?
The number one mistake I would say has to do with being heavy on one type of stream of income versus another, and not having a healthy, diverse, what I like to say, healthy piece of the pie for each of them. So a lot of times they'll say, hey, I need a grant writer. I need to do all these grants, or they rely specifically just solely on corporate sponsorship. And in essence, you really need to have a diverse streams of income that are coming into your organization so that you can have, a foundation that's sustainable, that it can last you into perpetuity.
And, how did it feel to earn your doctorate degree and to still have to prove yourself in a room full of unqualified people?
You know what? It's been, now I look at it as like my superpower, being the other, right? At first, it kind of kept me down for a little while. And I'm not going to even lie, like I didn't write my book. I didn't start my business. I didn't do certain things because of that for a while. But really, God told me, like, you are who I say you're going to be. And it was time to be obedient with that. And so being Dr. J was an amazing feeling. Graduated with my doctorate from State in 2022. Just the light that it created in my daughter's eye taught me that I needed to go ahead and do all the things. I need to go ahead and strive for excellence, whether I am the only Black woman in the room or in that industry, because she's looking at me. And so similarly, I'm reaching for the highest possible ground at this point. So yeah, it's hard. I'm in a lot of meetings at a lot of tables where I'm like, really? Like, I'm like, that's not too sharp. That's not too bright there. But at the end of the day, God keeps me humble. And he keeps my eye on the prize, and that's building his kingdom.
Got something, Doctor?
Yeah, Dr. Jones, it's so great to hear from you and talk to you. I first have to start by saying OH. Thank you very much, Dr. Jones. Thank you. I was going to say, don't leave me hanging now. I am a graduate of The Ohio State University also. And interestingly, I got my MPA in public administration with a nonprofit focus from Cleveland State. And so what made you decide to do this work? Because nonprofit work is not easy. So why this work?
Because we need it. Like it's a piece of what we're missing in our American society today is benevolence and doing good. And so I felt like, it would have been real easy for me to go get my MBA or to do something else. But I was like, no, I really need to sit here and get down in the mud. I need to get in the trenches with these organizations and these people who want to do better for their communities, who want and have a passion to help. And so it really mattered to me, like all these great ideas, we have all these phenomenal people, but they didn't have the structure or the systems or the processes or the funding in place. And so after a internship with the Secretary of State of Ohio, Jennifer Brunner at the time, I was able to visit all 88 counties of the state of Ohio. And I was able to see all the issues that I didn't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. So that really fueled me to want to get into nonprofit and help build strong organizations that want to do good.
Excellent. What legacy are you building, and who are you building it for?
Yeah, so my daughter, like I said, kind of, turned on the fire. It was always there. I come from an amazing family of people who value education. They value making something for yourself and self-sustainability. And so in having my own daughter, looking at her, and she's a author as well, and is a business owner as well. She's doing her thing. That shout out to Phoenix Jones, my baby girl.
What book's Phoenix write? What you say? What Phoenix doing?
How old is Phoenix?
Yeah.
Phoenix, she just turned 8.
Okay.
She's in second grade. She wrote 2 books when she was 7. One is called An Entrepreneur, Just Like Mom and Dad.
Wow.
And then she wrote another book about celebrating Kwanzaa because that's one of her favorite holidays. So she was at my book signing and she said, "Mom, I want to write a book. I want to talk about the things that I care about." So me and her father said, that's our job to make that happen.
I love it. Especially for her to be 8 years old and having her first 2 books at 7. Not one, but 2 books at 7.
Right.
She said more books than me, honey. So she keep us busy. We go on to Columbus to the Ohio Black Expo this weekend for her book. For her books, and she expanded into dried lemonade mixes because she had a lemonade stand in one of her books. So she's keeping us busy.
That is awesome. That is truly awesome. Everybody, this is Francesca. I'm not saying your name right.
You sure? You're not. It's Francesca.
It's Francesca. You listen, everybody who knows me, I'm the worst name person in the world. And I used to coach softball. And trust me, I used to tell all the young ladies before we started, like, I'm going to butcher everybody's name on the team. So I just want to let y'all know. So don't be mad at me if I call you somebody else's name. But I really want to thank you for coming on to the show. And we got a real big podcast where we're going to really get into depth and talk a lot more about how you do it and what you've been doing. Talk more about what your kids and your husband is doing as well to keep you guys moving in this direction that you're going in. You look like you got a lot going on, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about you.
I appreciate you. Thank you again. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. This is Miss Francesca Jones. Did I do that right?
Yes, you did it right.
There it is. And we be right back.
What's up, Cleveland? It's time to turn up the conversation. Tune in to the Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell radio show for What's on Your Mind Tuesdays. Call in, come in, and connect on 95.9 FM WOVU, WOVU.org, and hit us up on social media. Let's go.
Support for WOVU 95.9 comes from the TJ Carey Foundation, presenting the Heart Warrior Run and Walk on Saturday, June 28th. The event includes a 5K challenge, a 1-mile walk, and a 100-yard kids run, hosted by 9-year NFL veteran TJ Carey. The football-themed event features music, referees, and cheerleaders. Proceeds benefit programs of the TJ Carey Foundation. Details at tjcareyfoundation.org. Someone better squabble. They promised 40 acres and a mule. We built our own. WOVU 95.9 FM, where we amplify our voices, uplift our community, and make Black history daily. We've been doing it, and we're only getting stronger. Tap and grow with us. Add the app and take us anywhere, anytime. Stream us on our website at WOVU.org. And make sure to follow our social medias. Our voices united. Mission driven 24/7.
Squabble love, squabble love, squabble love, squabble love, squabble love, squabble love, squabble love.
Black women are 41% more likely to die from breast cancer than white women, despite being diagnosed at lower rates. Black men face twice the risk of multiple myeloma compared to white men and tend to develop it 5 to 10 years earlier. The Cleveland Office of Minority Health provides educational information about cancers affecting the Black community. More information is available at clevelandhealth.org. This message is funded by the Ohio Commission on Minority Health.
What's up, Cleveland? It's time to turn up the conversation. Tune in to the Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell radio show for What's on Your Mind Tuesdays. Call in, comment, and connect on 95.9 FM WOVU, WOVU.org, and hit us up on social media.
All right. We are back with Dr. Heather Burton in the house. And
I got a promotion, y'all. I'm co-host now.
She is co-host. You know what? I'm going to tell y'all, Case. Y'all was over there messing around. Y'all didn't do the right thing, and I hired her here.
I'm co-host.
She's a co-host now. I gave her a job. She's the new co-host of our show. So, and guess what? I told her she only needed a master's degree to have my job. Check that out. So let's talk a little bit about some current news before we get into this. Mm-hmm. Did you see that plantation that caught on fire?
No, I did not.
You did not see that. It was all over the internet. It was a house, a plantation. What city was that plantation in, Latif? It was a city. It was in Louisiana. That's for sure. It was in Louisiana. It was a plantation that burnt up down there, burnt to the ground. It was up there for hundreds and hundreds of years. People used to go out there and stand by it and took pictures of the weddings and all kinds of stuff out here at this plantation. And it caught on fire, and it's been all over the internet where people, especially Black folks, been taking pictures in front of the building while it's on fire. They've been doing some stuff where they've been dropping in pictures of people playing cards out in front of the house on fire, and all kinds of people line dancing in front of it while it's burning down, that kind of thing. But it was in Baton Rouge. But here's what when you listen to the news, and I usually have my news pieces for it, but they said that the fire department battled that fire for 24 hours. the whole day out there trying to put that fire out. I mean, and it burnt down. I mean, it was. If you look at it, it looked like hell. I mean, it really did. It was like I done seen some houses burn up, but that thing, it was on fire, and it was no way they were saving it. Once it went up, it was going down. So the big thing is there's a lot of people who are upset about the fact, there are some people, I ain't gonna say a lot of people, there are some people who are pretty upset about the fact that African Americans and Black folks are rejoicing in the fact that the place burnt down, but they're saying that there are people who live out there in that area who used that place for jobs and needed it and that kind of stuff. So they lost their jobs and all of that stuff by not being there and that kind of thing. Then there was some interviews of some of the people who worked there, because then there was the statement that people were saying that, hey, this is history. We're losing our history and you're not doing that. But then they talked about when you go to the place and you will tour it, you will go through it and you will talk about it. They had nowhere in there that this place was a slavery place. It was not, had nothing to do with play. So when we talk, all right, see, that's the kind of stuff that makes Uni grab her mic.
It is. I'm sorry, it is. Come on, because they try so hard to bury the history, the atrocities that they have done, and then be upset when something like this occurs, and they want to rebuild. They want to be upset at us for being happy. How dare you? The audacity to, one, even want to rebuild this place, for two, to even feel away at us, and for three, to even hide the actual real history of this place and what transpired. It's disgusting. I'm sorry, that's all I had to say.
The uni meter went all the way to red.
Went all the way to red, y'all.
Yeah, and let me make a correction. It was in White Castle, Louisiana, but Baton Rouge firefighters came all the way to
man. They had 24 hours. They had everybody.
So here's my question. What was the purpose of this mansion? What was the tour? What were they supposed to be teaching?
They did weddings. That's where the jobs and things of that nature occurred. Some people would just stay like as a bed and breakfast.
So it became like
it was a business. It became like
a facility, like a bread and breakfast.
I think sometimes they would do tours as well. So it's just.
But yeah, they don't.
It burned
right,
down.
but here's my thing. I go with you, Uni. This is the problem is that they don't want to acknowledge what history was.
Yes,
and so for us, this is a part of history that we had to encounter, we had to endure, and then to say that we're not gonna give you we ain't even gonna put a plaque on the wall.
right.
But we're gonna turn it into this beautiful quote unquote facility for people to use for weddings when we couldn't even legally get married.
That's correct.
And you are not acknowledging all of that. I'm with you, Uni.
Oh yeah.
And that's why I was asking, because I was trying to figure out if it was one of those places where they do the whole reenactment of it being slavery.
Oh no.
Like, was it one of those?
It was like one of the guys.
Yeah, they do. They have those.
They have those. One of the guy who was the tour guide actually said that, during his thing, he kind of went through and did the tour, and he talked about it at the very beginning. They mentioned that it was a former slave place, but that's it. They don't mention anything else, and they kind of go through the rest of the tour talking about how beautiful the place is and everything else, but that's it. Now, the history that they want to preserve now, that they keep saying they want to, without acknowledging the true existing of what the business was there for. And I also did some history on the gentleman who actually owned the place. He was a sucker. I mean, really bad. I mean, not just to the human race he was. And what I mean by that is that the story is that he came from another part, I think Virginia or somewhere. He ended up buying the place. And when he bought the place, he initially wanted to make it a cotton place to pick cotton, because he's from where they were using black folks to pick cotton. So he come to Louisiana like, we're going to pick cotton in Louisiana too. But he found out the weather wasn't conducive for making cotton out there. So he switched up and started selling sugar cane, where he made millions and millions of dollars selling sugar cane.
Still on our backs.
Then they said that and they want to say that they want to preserve the history that they built when black folks were the ones who built the doggone house that burnt down in the first place. So they never built that history. So that's the other part. But then they said that the war came along, and I get my dates wrong, what time it was. But when they say when the war came, that he had 3 sons, and he gave his 3 sons up to go to the war instead of himself to go fight. And he left his wife there in the house and went somewhere else. So he dodged the whole war thing. He was worse than the president we got, as you say.
Right.
He dodged. He gave up 3 sons and left his wife.
A war dodger.
A war dodger. Then after all of that was said and done, then he came back, and his wife ended up selling that whole place for $50,000. The equivalent, they said, to about $1.2 million right now. And that's how the place got sold and went on and on from there. But yeah, he was terrible dude.
It's just always amazing how folks want to rewrite history and not acknowledge what happened. And even in this, the land that it sits on, we cultivated that land. Mm-hmm. We built the house, we did the sugar cane, but yet you can't give any credit, and then you want to be upset because folks. Now, let me say this: economically, you never want anybody to lose a job.
Right.
That human side, you never want people to lose a job. Mm-hmm. But if you were fair, and if you created a space that was fair to everyone, you would have acknowledged what this was, the purpose of reinstituting it under a different plan or a different idea or a different business concept, but it would always have the remembrance of what it was and who built it.
Oh, well, they tore it down. I mean, it burnt. I mean, when I was talking about it, was like, it was no way they was putting 24 hours they took to put that fire out. That's a lot of water and a lot of firefighters. So that place was the spirits of
a whole bunch of Negro spirits.
A whole bunch of Negro spirits were going off in that one.
They were singing and bringing it on in.
That was Nat Turner in the middle of that. Like, I'm gonna burn this boy down.
That thing was not. They was not having it, man. And that was really the biggest news that I saw today. And I was going to talk about that earlier in the program, but yes, I wanted to bring that up because that's it. Do we know how it started? No.
I did just read something like it was an explosion.
It was an explosion. And here's the other thing: they
bombed that.
They're assuming. Now, here's the other narrative that's being spent. The other narrative that's being spent is that it's assumed that black folks set it on fire. You know, now it's like everybody's saying,
you're gonna blame us.
Now we catching the blame because they're saying, okay, y'all happy that it burned down, so obviously y'all must have set it on fire. It's like, no, we just happy it burned down. We didn't set it on fire. Nobody did that. You know, I think, that movie Sinners set it on fire. That's what I think happened. I think that doggone movie was doing some chanting of his own, and
they came back
and was like,
got the juke joint.
Got the juke joint. They was like, man, we gotta go and take that out. We can't have that. And I think that's what ended up happening. But all in all, it's just evil. And when dirty things happen, dirty things go down. And it's just about time. I don't know what it was in God's plan or whoever plan it was to say enough is enough. Yeah. I really wish they'd have did that 400 years ago. but right now is the time to burn it down. And
that's making me think about, though, just the aspect, and I think you mentioned this, of museum curators or museum tour guides, and how a lot of times these people are volunteers and they don't have the right history. I have corrected many tour guides on tours. They probably like, please don't let this lady come back to no museum.
Right.
But even at the malts, we would take students and participants for a program that we did at Case to the malts. And I remember it was a civil rights display or historical display. This was years ago. Before COVID, COVID just throws off your whole time, and you think it was like 30 years ago. But it was, we were walking through, and she was in different stuff, and I'm like, this is not right information. And so instead of fronting her in front of the whole group, I pulled her to the side, and then she explained that it is that they really don't have. They have a script.
That's their policy,
and that and I'm like, well, you got to have the right information. And that has happened several times that I've seen how people give out the wrong historical facts. And then the last thing I'll say is that I went to a museum in Richmond, and I don't know if y'all remember when the movie Loving versus Virginia came out with the where interracial marriages were against the law, and so this was one of the first couple.
Oh, I remember that movie. Now I know what you're
Yeah,
talking
it was,
about. Yes.
and it was so it
Yes.
was Loving versus Virginia. So I'm in Richmond, Virginia.
Right.
Went to see the movie in Richmond, Virginia, and then had the nerve to go to a Confederate museum in Virginia.
Yeah.
So I text everybody saying, if I don't get out before 2 hours, y'all know where I am.
You was
But
doing some bold stuff.
I always do. And then I asked the tour guide though, and she's talking about the beautiful furniture in the Confederate museum and all of this and who belonged to. I said, well, how many slaves did y'all own?
Wow.
And she looked at me.
Wow.
But it's one of those things that sometimes we have to challenge people. And I'm thinking about this place in Louisiana.
White Castle, Louisiana.
Yeah.
White Castle.
White Castle.
Louisiana. That's what it's called. White Castle. Oh, here was the other thing. Here's another narrative for you guys. How is it that they were able to take such a place and make it a place of where you can have receptions and things like that and take pictures? If you think about, like you was just talking about the malts and some of these other places and the way the Jewish folks and everyone else treat the heinous things that happen to them, never let you forget about it. They always on top of it. They're there. They would have never allowed them to put a dance hall in anything that was so sacred or anything like that, no matter how big or small it was. It would have been no dance hall. You wouldn't you would have definitely not been in there taking pictures. You wouldn't have been in there getting married. You wouldn't have been in there because that wasn't a happy place for people at all. It was nothing happy about that whole place at all. And they allowed them society, and the thing that I think some people are just not getting when they talk about this black rage or whatever you want to call it, you just don't understand how in your face that is and how disrespectful it is, and do it in the name of saying you making it right, and how sad it is that the people who live in that community, because it's called White Castle, Louisiana. So
that speaks volumes unless they selling burgers.
You know what I'm saying? Other than that, it ain't a lot of jobs I can imagine down there. So probably the only place that you probably could go work without lack of education, because we ain't gonna even get into that whole situation, was the same place that was holding us back all this time. And that's a daggone shame. And that's the reason why
it's not the podcast.
I gotta get it right. That's just a doggone shame. And that's why I think that it burnt in the way it did. And people shouldn't be upset. They should understand why people are happy about that. And it's just pure racism if you think of it.
Yeah, and it is. And then statistically, what I'd be curious to see is who was in those positions that we talking about for employment. And what I mean by that, not those that were just the servers and those that were working the door, but who were the managers?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I want to know, was it all of us that was managing, or was it somebody else from your family that was managing? And I think you brought up a good point that we often negate, and that is ownership. And this is what tends to happen, is that folks are so conniving, like our president.
Right.
Or like the president. I can't give him no claims to any possession of mine.
Right.
But so conniving that they take things right under our nose because of either not reading contracts, not understanding contracts, and other aspects. So I even think about that. I would be real curious to see how this was sold, where it was sold, what was told about this historically in terms of contractual information, and what needed to be included, what wasn't included, and does it go all the way back to the owner, because he had to remember on the radio he left.
Yeah, he booked.
And so that's always a question too, of how was this exchange made.
Oh, it's probably all questionable on that. There ain't no telling how that, like you say, even down to the lady selling it for the money that she did. So it's really, and when they did a view from the top, I think it was like good hundreds of acres of land that this was. I mean, this is a big, big, big spot that they had out there, and everybody, I think that if like we said, we're not wishing anything bad on anybody. I hope you guys are able to find you other employment and things, but I'm not sad, and as you can tell, Unicorn not sad.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. Not one
He's a sounding board.
She didn't. She ain't sad at all about it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna let Dr. Burton give her final thoughts. I'm gonna give my final thoughts, and we're gonna leave you till next week.
What's on your mind this Tuesday, Cleveland? Let's talk art, culture, politics, and business on the Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell radio show. Call us on 95.9 FM WOVU. Stream live at WOVU.org or comment on our social media. Let's hear from you.
Come on, y'all! We got some big news, Cleveland. Your favorite community radio station, WOVU 95.9 FM, is now on iHeartRadio. That's right. No matter where you are, you can stream the voice of the village anytime, anywhere. Get all your favorite shows, the hottest community conversations, and the music that moves the culture. Now just a tap away on iHeartRadio app. So whether you're at home, at work, or on the go, take WOVU with you. Search WOVU 95.9 FM on your iHeartRadio app, because our voices matter 24/7, and so does the mission. WOVU 95.9 FM. Our voices united, mission driven 24/7. The voice of the community, a Burtonville Car community radio station.
Cleveland, this is your show, your topics, and your voice. Join me for What's on Your Mind Tuesday on 95.9 FM WOVU. Call in or comment on social media. Let's make this conversation unforgettable. Streaming live at WOVU.org.
Yes, and we're back. We're back to you're listening to Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell and Dr. Heather Burton. And we want to again welcome Dr. Heather Burton. She is going to be our new co-host on our radio show here, and she is going to be a person who's going to help get some perspective here, because people say I'm all one-sided. I'm always talking about the brothers, and she's going to always talk about the women, and I think that we'll try to meet somewhere in the middle to make all of this make some sense for everybody out here. So we were talking about a few different things that was taking place, and I want to say this before we go, because you brought up something that got on thought about, and we was talking about gifts, and then you talked about the president. So we can't talk about go without the president getting a gift of a brand new jet. I mean, an Air Force One. He didn't get not just any jet. He's getting an Air Force One. Mm-hmm. That Air Force One is a big, big plane, and it does a whole lot of stuff. And so he's getting that, and he's going around the country. And I just want to say this, because you just mentioned the fact of how gifts and things and people get things. And he's getting a whole lot of gifts. And he's getting all of these gifts and all of this stuff right in our face. To what your point of what you were talking about. And it seems like the American public or people can't do nothing about it, but watch it happen. And again, when America asks us the frustration that we feel, you feel it because you knew Barack Obama couldn't do that.
Right.
Hell, and even if we even say him, we know a Joe Biden couldn't do it. You see what I mean? So when we say that, it's like this immoral type of thing that goes on that they're just doing. It's just happening in our face, and it seems like nobody can't do nothing about it. Makes you feel helpless and that kind of thing. And I think for the first time, white America can kind of get a feeling of why we feel. And I kind of understand how why some of us feel like they didn't want to do nothing. And I get it. I just still don't. I'm from the era that we got to continue to fight. But I understand why you would feel like, you know what, this ain't my fight. But we got to continue to fight, and we got to get into it. And for those who out there who feel it, now maybe you can have a different perspective to understand how we feel it. I mean, it's just sometimes you feel helpless, like no matter what they do it right in your face, and you can't do nothing about it. And that's what's happening with our government right now. It's getting taken from us right in our face, and we can do nothing about it.
Yeah. And I think, with that of understanding why is this happening? Because when we think about the checks and balances that are supposed to be in place,
right,
based on, now don't get me wrong, the Constitution not written for us, but based on the Constitution and other levels of government, how is this even happening?
Correct.
And I also think when you talk about people fighting and us talking about not being our fight or other people not fighting, is that many people don't want to pay attention. And so they see it, but they're not going to acknowledge it. And then others see it, but they have no idea what's actually happening.
That's correct. That's correct.
And they don't know. And it's amazing because I heard somebody say to me that this doesn't affect me. And I was like, well, what part?
Right.
Help me to understand what doesn't affect you, because even though it may not affect you where you're sitting right here physically, it's affecting some aspect of your life. It's affecting some aspect of your children's and then your children's children, because we're talking about this type of stuff that's going to have an impact generationally.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's not just with this generation, but it's with the generations to come. And so, Ken, I don't understand. One, I just don't understand how this is able to take place and the level of fear that has been created by this one person or him and his cronies. And we haven't figured out how to counter it. Because I asked somebody the other week, what's the process of impeachment? Do I need to write impeachment papers? I don't even know how to write them, but do I need? This is what I'm saying. Like, this person should be impeached by now for all of the laws that have been broken.
Hands down. But the problem is there's still more mean and evil people than it is good people.
Yeah.
That's what we up against. And because you got people fighting. There's some Democrats and Republicans who don't like what he's doing. And they fight, and it's just not enough of us. They just got enough votes to make sure everything stays the way it does. And it's that. Now, to that, there's two sides to that sword. There's the sword that says that, hey, Democrats, you need to take an advantage of that to do it the way we did it or the way they would do it. And that's why they get stuff done and we don't. Or it's the other side of it that says, no, there's a right way of doing everything. And sometimes the right way of doing everything seems like it's the wrong way, but it is truly the right way of doing it. And right now we're out of that. They're like, we're just doing it this way. And it's never been challenged before. So if you're going to challenge me, and we'll see who wins. And that's been the kind of the foothold of what's been going on. And it's kind of, it's the thing that we deal with all the time that now all of us is dealing with now. But it's no different. We've been dealing with that same thing all the time. It's like I was telling somebody, we was watching that young lady who did the thing and talked about racism, the lady who called the little boy the N-word last week in the playground. But we said racism and all of this stuff has been going on.
Yeah,
she's been calling them N-words and all of that stuff for years. Now we got social media and stuff that you can see it. But my age, I'm 57. And trust me, I lived it. When I was a little kid, we were in a neighborhood that was like that, and we had to go certain places. My parents and others lived in areas like Collinwood and other places in the community on the east side that was predominantly white neighborhoods that did not allow African-American, Black folks and people over there. And it took a long time before all of that stuff. So all of the racism and everything that's coming out now has always been there. Now we just can see it. And now people are now out there a little bit more brazen about saying it, but it's messed up. So Dr. Bird, I don't want to leave us on a downer. Why don't you give us some good news on our way out? And because we only got a couple of more minutes left, right? So give us something good on our way out.
Well, I want to go back. I think this was a question that you asked Dr. Jones earlier, talking about legacy. And when I think about that, leaving us on a good note is I challenge our listening audience. What's your legacy? And who are you going to allow to write your legacy? And so as we think about moving and navigating throughout this space, throughout the country and what we're in right now, who's going to write your legacy and what will your story be and how will you contribute to the history?
That is Dr. Heather E. Burton, my news co-host on Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell and now Heather Burton. And we'll see you next Tuesday on What's on Your Mind Tuesday. We'll see you then. Peace.
Whoa!